Hello everyone, Kurt Olfer here, and welcome back to another episode from Hope for the Labs. This week we're going to continue on regarding our view on regards to how we use the Segno for building structures, but we are also going to be talking about adding two more guards or posta of Fiore's Abrazare into some of the things we may see within the Segno. Now if you remember last week we looked at two positions, posta longa and posta frontale. And we kind of looked about, I shared a little bit of like what my anatomical observations are about these things right here and what these things translate to into a larger format later on when we start putting things together. So this week we're going to be talking about how some other observations that we get in regards to the last two guards, which is going to be the Dente di Cinghiaro and the Porta di Ferro. So with that being the case here, let's get into it. Once again, we have our Segno laid out in front of us here. And again, this is how we can start practicing moving into our postures and everything else. And again, if you're doing this at home, start off if you're playing with this, again, always checking that Segno kind of concept. Again, that's a Kurtism, but that's what Fiore's works inspire within me in regards to how to be, a practitioner of his works. So the guard we're going to be talking about, the positions we're going to be talking about today are Dente di Cinghiaro and Porta di Ferro when it comes out Abrazare. So to do this right here, I'm going to first talk about face value, and then I'm going to talk a little bit right here about what I think this actually means for everybody else. Face value. We are shown an image of a guy like this right here with a hand up. The guy is like his hands like it's simulating, in my opinion, this motion of coming upwards right here, where the hand is coming up. We're not quite in posta longa, but we are in a position here where we're starting to come up into and maybe doing other things, covering and whatnot. He talks about how you utilize this right here to wrap around posta longa, and how this right here can work for arm wraps and hooks. Now, what I think that this is a drawing, it's an image of looking at what it looks like to get the arm upwards into a position. Now, we can look at this as far as just one arm under, but I also think it could be two arms under. I think anytime that you are going from a low position or a high position here, and you're going any type of motion that's like this. Anytime we see this, we might be in Porta di Ferro, we might come up using Dente di Cinghiaro, and then utilize the concept of posta longa to shoot out the hands in front of us. That's all I think Dente di Cinghiaro is. It's not a thing to be rock, paper, scissors. Okay, I'm fighting somebody. Rock, paper, scissors. Up. He did posta longa. I did this right here. Now I have the opportunity to defeat him. I don't think that's what these are. I think they are to talk about motions of using the arms in a circular upwards and sometimes even forward to come up to other locks and positions, kind of a concept. The other thing too is it's not quite as long as posta longa. You have a bent arm, which to me, anatomically speaking, my arm's like this right here. I think this is one right here where, again, I've gone from a position where I'm straight, I'm starting to come up. So I'm not necessarily all the way there. I'm starting to come up where I shoot forward with. And that kind of separation of feet and arms, everything, will have a factor later on. Anyway, this is just what I see Dente di Cinghiaro is, and it helps me simplify the process to make greater things in his work make sense. Now the other one we're going to talk about is Porta di Ferro. And Porta di Ferro is shown as a person with his hands down like right here in front of his waist. Now, it's unclear. Maybe my hands are front like this right here. Maybe I'm off to the side. Maybe I'm tilted back. We're going to talk all about that later on, because essentially that structure, this thing where the hands are in front of the body, and whether it's forward or rear weighted, which we'll talk about later on, is a factor that's utilized, again, throughout the manuscript. These are just concepts. So I'm in a low position right here, and one thing about this in this structure is that my hands are relatively close to my waist. So rather than having my shoulders have to hold up my body, I'm here, so I'm actually amassed pretty well around me, right? And that actually allows my fortezza of that rear leg to really be steady to be able to take other actions. So if we put ourselves on the Segno once again, and again, I put myself here where I line it up here, so I essentially have My feet are along the Mizani and the Sultani and Fendente lines, and the left foot is kind of off onto the left of the line of the Fendente, or if I switch my feet opposite, right? Let's talk about this right here. So if I have myself in this position, maybe I'm a little back, and I'm starting to come up, right? We can already see, just by me turning, that we're starting to move in a direction. And whether this is both arms, whether I'm going from here to up or up, and I'm starting to extend, I'm forward and I'm bringing myself out. Regardless, we see we're not doing this. We're talking about, once again, moving up to this line. If you can imagine the crossbars, which now you can see it, if you imagine this crossbar right here, I might be coming up underneath somebody's arm. Think about that horizontal right here if the hands are up this way, right? There's lots of options to play with this. So anatomically speaking, that's what happens here. And I go up into, I can go up utilizing Dente di Cinghiaro into Posta Longa. I can utilize Dente di Cinghiaro to bring forward Posta Frontale, and I can bring back down. And I can utilize Volta Stabile. And you're starting to see already a motion of turning into a direction. So what does this do for us? Anatomically, hello sword. If I'm here and I let myself open up, remember the sword automatically will fall a little bit. You're starting to get that lower half of an action. And whether I choose to go all the way down, even though, and here's the thing, so as I go down with this, the reason my hands are in front is because I haven't separated them. Otherwise, my hand would fall back into position, and there's your Porta di Ferro. So being up, Posta Longa, coming down. Maybe I don't want to do a full, maybe I don't want to Volta Stabile, so I'm playing all the way back. Maybe I just, here. And again, I let the sword drop. Anytime that we have a sword in our hand, it changes up the anatomy a little bit here. But ultimately, the big thing right here about these four posts at the very beginning is it just gives us an idea of what you have within your body here as far as a framework piece. If you put this all together, I might be in Porta di Ferro, and we'll talk about this right here. I'm Porta di Ferro, and I'm also in Porta di Ferro. I can utilize myself going straight to Posta Longa, and I didn't have to come up. I just shut out. And you already get a blow coming from the top. Now the point of this lesson right here is not to talk about cutting structures and everything else right here, but I wanted to show that right there as far as I can come up here going straight into Frontale or in the Posta Longa. We'll talk a little bit what happens here when we start adding that in there. Regardless, the big thing right here is if you're at home and you're practicing this, is to kind of think about here, maybe I'm Porta di Ferro, and now start playing where I can come up and shift. Maybe I come up here, and I turn back down. Utilize Posta Longa, use Dente di Cinghiaro, Posta Longa to come off, Dente di Cinghiaro come in this spot to get over. And then also all the turns of the feet also apply. So that's to include as far as this right here. That's the thing I want you all to think about. And again, this is talking about the basics and observations that I see out of Porta di Ferro and Dente di Cinghiaro. So once again, we can kind of see here how the posta, the basic posta of Abrazare, are going to be utilized later on in Fiore's manuscript. And personally, I see these right here as the building block. And in no way, shape, or form, you're always getting this right here. And I have another video that was an earlier video that kind of showed this with me being in armor, which is also to articulate the concept that the positions of wrestling, of Fiore's Abrazare, they're the building blocks and foundations to everything you're going to do with a sword in your hand. And it kind of changes up the narrative a little bit. But anyway, with that being the case here, I hope this gives some consideration out there. If you've liked this, consider subscribing and share with a friend out there. If you have any thoughts or comments about these posta and positions, maybe you were taught something different, please share away here. Like I said, I don't see myself as the only person on this. However, this is what the Maestro's book inspires in me, and I am just very determined to share what I see and observe within myself, and also that I share with my students in a broader context. So, with that being the case, until next time, everybody, train well, be safe, and fight on.